Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wrestling with Kayfabe. After a long layoff and much anticipation, me and my co-host here, DEJ, are back.
It's called the Becky Lynch maternity leave.
Hey, there you go. We're back. About 26 seconds?
Yep.
Man, how you been, DJ?
Good. Just living life, watching wrestling explode again, which is really cool. And, it was kind of a dead in the water thing for a little bit because TNA left. And WWE was the only thing in town that was a big marketing place, and I got AEW starting to come into fold, and I mean it's a cool time to be a fan for sure.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy to see like you said, explosion again of wrestling, and just it kind of feels like it did when we were young. I mean, we were real young for that time period of WCW and WWE, and it was what side are you on? It seems like it's definitely very much that again. Mm-hmm. You're either AEW, you're WWE, you're Kenny Omega, or you're Roman Reigns.
Right.
It's definitely been really fun to watch, and especially since the time that we've been off, it's been crazy to see, like you said, to watch the explosion of everything, and it's just wild to see the names, the jumping ship, and CM Punk returning. I think that was a moment where I stopped to be a part of that. Essentially, I wanted to watch the return of CM Punk and his promo and the delivery, and he just seems like he hasn't really missed a step.
No, he's just older,
right?
Back at peak Punk, which was 2011, 2012. Mm-hmm. There wasn't anything he couldn't do. But it's still there. I mean, he still has the same talent he had. It wasn't, to me, he's just older. It wasn't as fast as it used to be, but it was still pretty impressive. Especially that night when he came back. I mean, that's one of the moments you live for as a wrestling fan in general, is just that general explosiveness of a return of that magnitude. And I mean, they really did a good job with it, because I mean, they teased at the fact that he was coming back at some point, and to make them wait and then to hit his music, and that they couldn't have done it much better.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that, because that night was just, like you said, something you live for when you're a wrestling fan, or those guys in the business. And I'm sure Punk, just overwhelming for him, and to see him come back in the match with Darby Allin, that was very impressive. Mm-hmm. That was definitely a feeling watching that match, and like you said, it's a little bit slower, more methodical, good. That match was absolutely perfect for me. I think the perfect comeback for Punk.
Right.
And showed his kind of veteran, just mindset. And, I think the time in the Octagon and training, MMA definitely really helped him. And helped him stay fit, in shape, ready for this kind of thing. And, after 7 years, I think is what it was. After 7 years being off and not having to travel and be on the road 300 days out of the year and whatnot, I think did him a lot of good. And just to see him back, and to see you could tell he's happy, he's truly happy. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite moments of that whole little couple week time period was when the crowd was chanting yes. Mm-hmm. And he stops the crowd and says, "Hey, that's somebody else's shtick, be patient." And then, what do you know, at what, I don't even remember, what was that was All In? Was that the name of the pay-per-view? So. Yeah, at All In, and Daniel Bryan makes his debut, which that was a little wild. Adam Cole comes out, and then right after that it's Daniel Bryan.
Right.
That was interesting, just to throw all that at you at once. I enjoyed it, but I think that they definitely could have kind of expanded that a little bit more. But that was one thing that really kind of surprised me. I guess, I don't know, not too surprising, but just, I guess I'm more of a, pay attention to WWE and whatnot more so than AEW and kind of the crowd that follows AEW. And I guess I just didn't realize how over Adam Cole was. Because when he came out,
oh, yeah,
the Adam Cole baby, and especially that stadium show that they did. There's 20,000 people in the crowd, and he comes out, and that whole crowd just screams, "Adam Cole, baby!" And it's like, wow, that's some shit, I actually just watched the Rock Bottom pay-per-view from 98 or 99. Yeah. And just to see how over some of those guys were, and when the New Age Outlaws came out, that was one that just kind of blew me away. And now today it reminds you of that time. It's almost like we're right back in that time period where, Billy Gunn comes out and says, if you're not down with DX, we got 2 words for you. And the whole crowd just, you can clearly hear them say, "Suck it," And then you clearly hear the whole crowd say, "Adam Cole, baby." Like, it's just, it feels good to have, this type of excitement around wrestling again,
Well, and I think the biggest problem with WWE letting him go, was that was the biggest question: is why would you let someone that over go? They let Bray Wyatt go. And a lot of people, they said they let Bray Wyatt go because of money and this and that and that and this, and and probably so, but at the same time, they're a corporation. They've got to look out for their future, and he was going to make a lot more money than they were probably willing to shell out. And they've probably got 5 or 6 legendary contracts that are the same amount of money that they were going to have to pay him anyway. It was probably, I think at the peak of John's career, he was making, I think they said anywhere from 10 to 15 million a year. Man. So they were going to have to pay him somewhere near that. And and in their defense, I would agree that he wasn't on the same level as John with that character. To pay him $10 to $15 million, or close to it, you're going to have to be that, that John Cena type level, and it wasn't there. It's a different dynamic, but that to that extent and that much money, I wouldn't say it was there.
I agree with you. I do agree with the money and stuff, but the level that he's on, I feel like, is their own fault. I feel like Bray Wyatt had the potential to be, even going back to WrestleMania 30 when he loses to John Cena. To think about how bad they did the character of Bray Wyatt and then The Fiend. And at the end of the day, how do you come back from burning the man alive on television?
Right.
I think that it was good for all parties. I'm still, we've seen some interesting cryptic tweets from Bray Wyatt. I'm not sure where he'll end up because I've heard speculation he may end up back in WWE.
Which he could. There's a lot of times where Vince McMahon gets rid of somebody, and then 6 months down the road, he brings them back.
Yeah.
It's hard to say no to a company that's willing to offer you more than any other company.
Yeah.
To do what you've been doing your whole life. So it's a very high probability, and I imagine they're probably waiting for the right moment to do it. I don't think AEW is going to pay him enough. I highly doubt Impact's going to pay him enough. So if he's looking for the creative freedom and money, I would imagine Vince let him go to see how much creative freedom, control he really had, and how much of it was creative of their own. So I can see him coming back because the Drew McIntyre character is getting old to me. to me, he's just a Scottish John. Or you can't even tell sometimes. Sometimes he's a Scottish Kane. I mean, they don't really know what he is, honestly. He's either human or he's, just absolutely, unremarkably, undeniably undefeatable for some reason. So, he's a weird character that I think is going to get old. It's already old, but it's going to get older faster. So they've got to do something. And I think they'll bring him back at some point.
Yeah, I'm interested. I think we got thrown off topic a little bit because we've got SmackDown on in the background. But okay, let me go back to Bray for a minute because I think that he could get more money and creative freedom with AEW. But I think at the end of the day, I think you're right. I don't know if he'll get that kind of money from AEW. Like you're talking about the $10 to $15 million range. I don't think he's going to get that either way. And I think what's frustrating with that, like if I was in his shoes, is I don't think that it's necessarily his fault.
Right.
But then again, like you said, who knows with the creative freedom, how much liberty he had in WWE at the end of it, and with the Fiend.
Rumor is not very much.
And I totally believe that because I think a lot of stuff. I don't know. I think that Wyatt is a great mind with his stuff. I think because at the end of the day, I mean, he came up with two pretty I want to say iconic characters that were just handled very, very poorly. I think at the end of the day, like I was talking about with Bray around WrestleMania 30, he beats John Cena. I mean, that catapults him. At the end of the day, at WrestleMania 31, he should have went over on Undertaker. He wasn't breaking the streak. Undertaker's streak had already been broken. I don't think there's a lot of harm in him losing to Bray Wyatt. The way that they build that match, I mean, I feel like it was obvious to put the younger generation over. And instead they didn't. So, back-to-back WrestleManias. And, I mean, even, what was that, 36, the COVID WrestleMania? Where him and Cena had the match and they kind of made fun of WrestleMania 30. How, obviously he should have went over and, Super Cena kind of stepped in. And so I think for Wyatt, he's probably at a weird stage to where he probably doesn't, kind of like how Punk was. When Punk wanted to leave around Money in the Bank and it really looked like they were going to give him this, push to the moon and, the summer of Punk. And so he comes back and he signs, re-signs that deal, comes back and, they dropped the ball on it. And, I think that if I was Wyatt, I would be looking at it like, it sounds great, but realistically, where will I be at in a year?
Right.
How bad are they going to hurt my stock? I have to have, some liberty, especially such a thinker like that. I mean, he's very methodical in the way that he goes about presenting himself, whether it was with The Fiend, whether it was with Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family and, all of this. But going to Drew McIntyre, that you brought him up, I think that it's really interesting how stale he has become. I know that I haven't 100% paid attention to any wrestling, really. I've kind of stayed. I listen to the Jim Cornette Experience a lot. So, and I've kind of listened to 83 Weeks Bischoff's podcast. It doesn't go too much into what's going on right now, but on Cornette's, I kind of stay up to date. Obviously, it's a lot of AEW bashing, but I kind of stay up to date with what's going on. But yeah, it does seem like McIntyre is just super stable, and I don't think they really know what to do with him because it's like he's this main event level guy that you kind of gave him the ball, let him run with it for a little bit, and was like, go back down to the mid card and kind of hang out for a little bit, let Roman do his thing. I think they're probably doing a disservice with him being on SmackDown on the same brand as Roman. Because think about just a year ago on this podcast right here, we had Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns.
Right.
We talked about that and we loved that match and loved what both of them had to offer, and it seemed like two unbeatable guys going up against each other. And yeah, I don't know. Drew McIntyre is definitely an interesting case because where does he fit in But man, it's so crazy to see wrestling kind of back to where it was in the 90s with the, who's going to go where, who's just waiting for their contract to be over.
Right.
Man, I can't believe that they let, kind of going back to Adam Cole, I can't believe that they let Adam Cole go. And they let all those guys go. All of those guys besides Kyle O'Reilly are gone now. Mm-hmm. They're all, well, or is it Strong? I think it's Roderick Strong. Yeah, Strong's still around. Mm-hmm. But Bobby Fish is over in AEW. I think, I don't think, I just said his name now. I can't think of it. O'Reilly. I don't think Kyle O'Reilly is under contract, or maybe he's right at the end. But it'd be interesting to see if Undisputed Era ended up reforming in AEW. Mm-hmm. I'd pay to see that and see them go up against the Elite. That'd be an interesting storyline.
Well, it would. The thing I find interesting about all that, is watching AEW's handling of their World Championship is similar to TNA. You give it to Chris Jericho, and then you go and give it to Kenny Omega. You give it to two older guys, have been around for a while. I mean, Kenny Omega's not that old, but
he's been around.
He's been around. And then you give it to Adam Page, but you've got Bryan, you've got Punk, you've got those guys looming around the title, and that's something they've got to watch out for, mainly because, all these guys that, you brought in to AEW to help you, those were the guys, for the other brand that you're competing against. Mm-hmm. So you're basically telling, the guys that you brought in, well, we still need these guys that, you guys couldn't get into, or they didn't offer you a contract, we want these guys to run our show. And that's what TNA did, basically. They brought in Booker T, Ric Flair,
Kevin Nash,
Hulk Hogan,
Kurt Angle. Yeah, the list is fairly long.
and
Christian,
and the big shows, there, and Christian's in AEW now, and so it's eerily going down a similar path, in TNA. It's basically telling the guys, hey, even though Chris Jericho, has made AEW his own brand, that's where he came from.
Right.
So,
well, and at the end of the day, I think that's another thing. That's something that they got to be smart and play smart, like you're saying. Because, like you said, TNA, but then also WCW.
Right.
When you think about WCW back in the day, think about Hogan, Hall, Nash. When Hogan when Hall and Nash came in and just came through and destroyed everybody, it was kind of like, you hear a lot of that talk now where they go back and say, those guys came over and just destroyed everybody, and it was believable because you got the big bad company coming down to the, so-so company, and obviously these guys are going to wreck all of these guys. So I feel you on that. You got to be careful towing that line of being, you got to show that your guys are strong against these outside guys. And then again, they're not really billing any of these guys as like outside guys necessarily,
right?
Which is cool because because the way that AEW's playing is smart, because AEW's kind of the indie promotion, like that's what they were built upon, and all of these guys kind of coming home to their independent roots. Punk and Bryan have both talked about that in their original promos coming in, and
right.
So I think they've kind of played that smart in that regard.
They have, but it's a cautionary tale.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of companies that have tried to do, that, and it's failed. Impact at one point had a Spike contract, and they were, one of the bigger shows in wrestling, and now
they tried to compete with Raw.
Right.
They moved to Monday night.
Right. And now they're trying to, to barely hang on to, the gaming networks. So, right. You see what happens to a company that happens, falls quickly. I was watching, and I guess we stated this at the beginning of the show, the Becky Lynch maternity return. But, I mean, she's come back and just laid some massively good promos, which, that's not really a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
But the last one she did...
On Monday night?
Yeah. God damn it.
Yeah.
And that's some good shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why they waited so many years for her to be like this, but, I mean, it's revolutionized a lot of things, for her, for the women's division in general.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people are crediting, Charlotte and Sasha for the revolution, but, I mean...
I think in a way, like, this is the culmination of it. It's like, because what I was getting ready to say as you were talking and kind of thinking is, her trajectory is almost like she is the Stone Cold of the women, because just even what she stopped wrestling. Ended up, returning to wrestling, worked her way all the way here, spent all those years underneath Charlotte and Sasha and, these women that were her equals and who she was coming up with, but she spent time, essentially under them. And finally, it seems like she just kind of said, all right, I'm fed up with playing second fiddle. Mm-hmm. And this is, I'm just going to be me. And, it feels like, man, she's just taken that and ran with it. I think that at first I thought that it was a bad idea to turn her heel when she came back, how quickly they did that. Mm-hmm. But I think it's the right call. Yeah. Because she's almost like, like I was saying with the Stone Cold thing, it's almost like an anti-hero. It's like she's a heel, but I'm still going to cheer for her.
Well, I mean, yeah, she's a in-betweener right now, because I mean, she cut a promo on Charlotte, for her Survivor Series, and then Liv Morgan came out, and she cut a promo on her too. I think the last one she said is some people just don't have it, and it's not that. I'm glad to see that they're actually giving Liv Morgan a chance.
Me too. I'm surprised by that. Yeah, I like that too.
I think she's fairly talented. I would have liked to see them give Ruby Riott a better chance than they did.
I agree.
Out of the three, Sarah Logan was the lowest one. But I mean, how do you not give Ruby Riott more than one title shot? You give it against Ronda Rousey. I mean, come on.
Kind of obvious what's going to happen there. Yeah.
And they tried to play it off as Ruby Riott's some background that she had, but I mean, Ronda Rousey's character was hard to believe, because in the end of the day, you knew how physically different Ronda Rousey was than the other women. Mm-hmm. So it was very hard for you to sit there and believe that, Nikki Bella was going to flip her on her, force her to flip on the mat, when Ronda's literally forcing herself to not counter it because she can.
Right.
So I mean,
it's like the Brock Lesnar effect almost. Because,
right.
When you look at Lesnar, a lot of times with those matches, just like, we were watching the end of Crown Jewel, and just, it takes everything to beat Brock. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like any match that you see, they do that really well. And I think that it was harder to play that off with Ronda, and I don't know exactly why. I don't know if it was just like, it was the women's division, or if it was just hard to believe, it seemed like. Because I agree with you, it's just really hard to believe. I think it's because, well, I mean, in Brock, it's his credentials are wrestling too, but I don't know. With Ronda, it was just kind of weird. And maybe it was Ronda's attitude, or, something along that line.
It's definitely her attitude now.
Well, yeah, for sure.
She didn't... I don't think she, understood that people weren't going to like her, at a certain point. And...
or really understanding how the business actually operates.
Right. I mean, if you get booked a certain way, people aren't going to really care for you that much, and it was kind of like, it was the anti-booking of Kurt Angle. Because Vince McMahon told Kurt, and Kurt said this in interviews, Vince McMahon told him, he said, hey, go out there and just act like you're, the greatest American of all time. And Kurt said, they're going to like me. And Vince said, no, they're not. And Kurt said, yes, they are. And Vince said, trust me, they're going to hate you in 5 minutes. And Kurt went out there, and not 5 minutes into his promo, he was getting booed out of the building in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And he came back to Kurt, and he said that's when he knew how smart Vince McMahon was, because he didn't believe him for a second until he came back and he said, okay,
right,
I'll listen to you.
Yeah.
And I mean, that just shows, how, and Kurt Angle took off from there.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just goes to show, Vince can.
You gotta show that personality. Right. Because when he really got over was when we realized this guy's funny. Like, this guy's gold. Yeah. And I think, everybody kind of realized at the same time, was like, because a lot of times it takes you being a really good heel to get over with, especially our age group now, we're not kids anymore, we're older and we understand, just like Roman, look at Roman Reigns and his trajectory. It took him to be this massive heel of just, I'm going to destroy everybody and I'm going to, have this, the bloodline and run everything and it's not going to be fair and, cutting these crazy promos and you're like, okay, I like this guy now. This is what I needed from him. And going back to the Ronda thing, I think that she should have just really looked at Brock Lesnar and saw herself in Lesnar. Right. Because look at Lesnar. People hated Lesnar. People still, I think right now it's perfect because he's been off television for a long time. But, when you're seeing Brock once every couple of weeks, maybe once a month on TV, and then, once at a pay-per-view, and he's stomping somebody out and retaining the title, and you never see the title on TV, she should have known that's exactly what was in store for her.
Right.
And that, they were going to get behind someone like Becky Lynch. Becky really couldn't have been at a more perfect time to set off that whole the man gimmick, that she did, because that was that perfect time where you needed an anti-hero like her to come in and save the day. So I think that that's perfect. And then now here we all are full circle, and Becky is still one of the hottest stars in the business. How much do you know about the real backstage heat between her and Charlotte? I think that's pretty interesting.
To me, I'm surprised Flair hasn't gotten more of that. She beat Rhea Ripley multiple times when she shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And even in the matches, you could just tell at some point she's gonna, hit the figure 4 and magically win the match. And, her matches are so predictable at this point, and who knows what's going to happen Sunday. I would imagine they'll probably give it to Charlotte in some close, and they'll all shake hands and blah, 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 but it's frustrating because I see why she has so much heat back there, because, it's, there's a couple of girls that, are a little bit better than she is right now. Mm-hmm. Becky's the prime example, and, not that I'm not the biggest Bianca Belair fan in the world, but, I think she's definitely up there, and
yeah, she's definitely taking the ball and ran with it.
You've got to give people a chance, and I think they've kind of realized that, even though she is Charlotte Flair, and even though she will go down as one of the most, if not, the best female wrestler ever, it's still, you're tarnishing who you are by sticking around that much. Randy Orton could easily be the same as Charlotte Flair could be.
Right.
He could, demand the title every single day.
I'm glad that you brought Randy Orton up, because I was just thinking, watching Monday Night Raw, I know RK Bro is super silly and it's kind of dumb in a way, but it also just shows how great Orton is.
Yeah.
Because he could have said, fuck that. He could have said, I'm not doing that with this idiot, Riddle and blah, blah, blah. But instead, he's making it work. Because they had a little interaction where he kind of just told him, what was he saying to Riddle? He said, basically, stop playing hero ball. Stop trying to be the hero.
Right.
Stop going out there and getting interfered in other people's business. He said, I don't give a damn about anything else or anyone else. I care about these titles and I care about this team. And it's just like, I really like the dynamic between those two, even though it is kind of goofy and it's silly and, Riddle is way too far over the top because at the end of the day, Matt Riddle was a UFC fighter, and a good one. He was, so I don't like how they treat him as I get it, he left the UFC because he's failing his drug test and, he likes to smoke weed and, he's a bro or whatever, whatever. I get it. But at the end of the day, like, I wish they would treat him a little bit more serious, and maybe they will. Maybe he'll go on a heel run at some point or, and figure something out. But I do think it just shows the strengths of exactly what you're talking about is, Charlotte just wants to stay at the top. She wants to be at the top. And I mean, even Ric Flair, back in his day, I mean, he wasn't always right at the top of the card. Not, all the time, right. I mean, he was definitely one of the best, and she is one of the best. She is, should be at the top. But at the same time, you've got women's tag team champions now. You've got these other ventures that you could go on, and I don't think that she needs to be pushed as the champion all the time.
Well, I mean, she doesn't. There's enough talent to where she doesn't need to be. I mean, and I think most of her frustration comes from the fact that people prefer Becky, and I know Becky. That was the same criticism from her when she beat Belair in 10 seconds at SummerSlam or whatever it was. But at the same time, I mean, it. Who else are you going to put with that championship and basically help run the Raw division or wherever she's at now, SmackDown, Raw?
Talking about Charlotte or Becky? Becky, yeah, on the Raw champion now.
And, who are you going to put the belt on? Because they don't have another person that's on the same level. So you got to have someone that pushes someone to the next level. So I mean that's why they're moving Liv Morgan in that title picture. So I mean you've got to have someone that carries the belt and makes it they're developing characters grow. So to me that makes sense. And Bianca Belair she was still developing, and it just she wasn't that person yet.
Yeah,
and she's still not. And I get why Rhea Ripley doesn't have it right now, but. I mean, to put her up against Charlotte Flair 3 times and she loses 3 times, and, that kills the character.
Absolutely. You're saying that she is not her equal.
Right.
Is what you were telling us,
right.
the viewer. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, do you think Charlotte's done after her contract's over? You think she's going to AEW? Because her real life, are they married? Her and Andrade?
I don't think they're married yet, but they're engaged.
Yeah, that's her significant other is over there. And
Rick's over there too now. So I mean,
is that official? He's over there?
Yeah. I mean, so
I think the writing's on the wall for that, and I think that's also part of because really, from what it seems like, she just has really just over the last 6-ish months just pissed the locker room off. That whole situation with Nia Jax and them kind of, she hasn't really been working very well with others, essentially. So I think at this point you kind of got to figure out a way to get the belt off of her, right? I mean, I don't know what her contract stipulation or, when it's up or anything like that, but I mean, we're back to those times you got to worry about things like that.
Well, that's what they said. They said the problem is that she has a year or 2 left.
Okay.
So... they've unless they buy her out, I mean, they've got to figure out something to where, she can, leave, but I don't think they'll be able to do that. I mean, Vince isn't going to shell out, probably $5-6 million,
Well, and at the end of the day, you're shelling out that money to give. I mean, she's still one of the best talents in the women's roster to go somewhere else. You know, I mean, that's not a smart decision. And I think a lot of the decisions they've made aren't really smart, but I mean, that one would be next level. Like, hey, here's, one of the best women in the game. Here you go, Tony.
Yeah.
Just not a good idea.
Yeah. No, it's not a good idea. But AEW's women's division is lacking pretty hard. I like Britt Baker a lot, but I mean outside of that,
DMD.
it's not. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I agree. She's like a woman amongst girls, essentially, with Britt Baker. Because I feel you. I don't think that there really a realistic equal to Britt Baker in AEW right now. I mean, maybe if they could get Jade Cargill over. I know she's still kind of green in the ring, but yeah, imagine that. Imagine Charlotte Flair coming over and having a match with Britt Baker. I mean, that'd be a big time deal.
It would, yeah. I mean, Britt Baker would probably lose, but
right.
I mean, it would be a big thing. They actually, I mean, this is kind of a small thing, but they actually just announced that I think Jay Lethal's AEW now.
He was in the main event last night.
Yeah.
Of Dynamite. I didn't get to watch that. I'm gonna run that back, but I watched a little bit of the beginning. But he had a match for the TNT Championship against Sammy Guevara. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was interesting because they announced that at Full Gear. Mm-hmm. He announced he was there, and it was funny because at first he was coming down to the ring or getting ready to, and they played. Sounded like Macho Man's music. And like for a minute I was thinking like, why do I know the and then it clicked in my head. I was like, okay, that's Macho Man. Why? And then I was like, Black Machismo. Jay Lethal. Just all of that came running back and just remembering, what a God that promo he had with him and Flair going back and forth. Woo, 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 woo. Legendary stuff. And you forget some of these guys that, you haven't seen in so long. Because, I mean, I never paid attention to Ring of Honor at all. So, I haven't seen Jay Lethal in a long time. So, I know how good he is. And, how, especially on the mic, how good he is and stuff. But, I just haven't even thought about him in so long. It was just like, all those memories came rushing back. I was like, man, Jay Lethal's a pretty big deal, getting in for AEW. And I'm not 100% sure about the Ring of Honor stuff, but they just closed their doors.
Yes, they did. Yeah,
so
they closed the door. They let everybody go. So everyone is free play.
And we haven't seen the free agent list.
Yeah. The
free agent list that we have of wrestlers at this day and age is just like, whoa. There's so much talent out there. Because I know on... the 83 Weeks podcast with Eric Bischoff, they were talking about how much talent is out there that maybe a TV company like Vice, that's kind of got an established wrestling core now with them doing Beyond, or what is that called? Behind the Ring? Something like that. And they do a great job. I love watching that show, The Plane Ride from Hell. I watched that a couple of weeks ago. It was really good and interesting. But that could just pop up with a promotion because there's that much talent. You could probably pop up a third promotion and be somewhat successful. I mean, it's just crazy how much talent is out there.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a rare time, in the sport to where you have so many guys who, are buried in that Ring of Honor or buried in, the Impact, But, now all those products are gone. So, Impact isn't gone, but,
But even Impact is almost like an extension of AEW at this point.
Right.
The way that they've teamed up together. And I really liked when that first started, the whole storyline between AEW and Impact. And Kenny Omega going over there, and then you had the Good Brothers kind of, coming over. Because it blows my mind that they're in Impact. Kind of, they're stuck in. I don't want to say stuck. I mean, they chose to go to Impact, so I mean, obviously there was a reason they wanted to go there. But just the fact that those guys, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, are on the C show. At the end of the day, I mean, it's kind of crazy, and it just shows you the level of talent that is out there. Because, you still have a pretty good tag team division in AEW. I mean, I think they could use a little bit more, but and you got the Bucks, FTR, the Jurassic Express with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, and the Champs. Man, I can't think of their name. Pentagon and Penta. I guess I don't even 100% know their names.
Yeah,
the Lucha Bros. There we go.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on. There was one thing that I mentioned just earlier, but we'll go back to Kevin Owens turning heel again.
That was interesting.
I think he's tried to basically take over, that Stone Coldish vibe of, he borrowed the stunner, he's going in between back and forth, but him being a heel is kind of his sweet spot. When he turned on Chris Jericho in Festival of Friends, that was one of the That was one of the better turns in a while.
Absolutely.
It just had that brief moment. It was building up to it the whole show. You could feel it. And when Chris Jericho looked at the list, he asked, why am I the only one on this list? It's like, oh shit,
right?
And it was just, you got, Chris Jericho is immensely talented, in this, but it was perfectly done, and apparently that was almost canned. I think somebody, Vince wasn't there that night. And, they basically said, well, we'll just get rid of it because the other guys didn't like it. And Chris Jericho basically said, I called Vince and said, hey, we still on for Festival of Friends? He said, well, yeah. And he said, well, you guys want to tell Vince no? And they went with it, but he said he had to fight just to keep it on the show that night.
That's crazy.
They didn't know.
Especially how great that moment was,
right.
Just to think that it was that close to getting canned. That's insane.
Right. And, but Kevin Owens being heel is where he needs to be, for his career and, especially being on, SmackDown right now. He needs to be the heel, and
Raw. He's on Raw.
Raw. Yeah, Raw. They've changed everything up so many damn times. Yeah, to be on, that's right, he's on Raw because Big E's the champion on Raw. To be on Raw, he needs to be the heel to Big E now, which it's interesting that New Day, all three of them have each gotten their own, comeuppance, I guess, at some point. Woods is the king of the ring. Kofi Kingston's been WWE champion. Now Big E's been WWE champion. It took him 10 years for all three of them, to
right,
to really get the chance. But Woods has always been super talented in the ring, but they've just, he's been third, to Kofi and Big E, but, I think that's great that they actually gave him a chance to do something.
You think that they still hold him being a TNA guy against him? Or maybe that's the reason why he's been the lone guy without... Yeah.
It could be, but, there's no doubt that he's not talented, and I think that's great that they gave him a chance, and, they put him against Finn Balor, who, they brought him back, which was probably the best decision to bring him back. I don't know why they even took him off scheduled TV, but they did. Put him back in NXT, and,
Who'd you say?
Finn Balor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that was interesting, the way that they handled him for a minute.
Right, and I think it was just, to rebuild his fan base, which it did, but then they, did that stupid demon character against Roman Reigns, and, that's the whole reason why he got moved down in the first place, because no one liked, Demon Finn Balor. And
I feel like I love Demon Finn Balor if we didn't acknowledge it like that. Like he's some other fucking person. But that, to me, because the way that they did it in NXT originally, where it was like a big pay-per-view, like at the takeovers, he'd wear the paint. I don't understand. Like, I don't know where we missed that that's what was cool about it, We knew when we got a big event, we were going to get to see the paint, Like, it wasn't I don't know. I don't like the way that they've treated it because I just think it's goofy. But like you said, I mean, I don't think people like that. Just treating it as it's a whole different thing. Like, it was one thing with Bray Wyatt and The Fiend because that's the gimmick, like Finn Balor and Demon Finn Balor are not two different things. It's just him putting the paint on. I don't understand why they turned it into that of, oh, it's Demon, Finn Balor. I don't know.
Well, that's part of, WWE's problems is, they turn people into the wrong thing or,
try to do too much with one thing, yeah.
Right, and they talked about this a while ago, and they still talk about it every freaking day, but, they're talking about how Triple H's time is getting closer, Vince's time is getting, closer to the end, Triple H's time is getting closer to the start. So, I mean, at some point, Triple H is going to take over. I mean, it's not going to be Shane. I think Shane just left the company again, from what I've read. And Stephanie's going to be with Triple H. So, I would imagine he'll take... I was thinking about this the other day. I kind of want to see him back on TV.
Triple H? I'm all for that.
Because, I mean, on the mic, just his TV presence is so good. Especially during the COVID when he had, that spat with Randy Orton, when they were doing The Fiend and Randy, this and that.
Mm-hmm.
He's good. I mean, he's one of the best in the world. He's always been one of the best in the world, but, especially now. So, I'd like to see him back on TV. Speaking of things WWE's overdone, I mean, I get it. I like that he, the happy Baron Corbin. I get it. The biker Corbin was kind of getting old. So they wanted to do something different. And he's one of the better heels, in recent memory. I mean, he's really good at being a heel. But I just wish they did more with him, probably because he's from here. I mean, that's probably the only reason why I wish they did more with him.
Yeah, I feel you. Because I've always thought that too, but at the same time, I never liked Baron Corbin, honestly. Yeah. I always thought that he was annoying, and especially the Money in the Bank situation. That was something that kind of killed me on him.
Right.
But I feel you, yeah. I wish that they would do more, and I haven't got to experience this little happy Corbin character they've got going right now too much. It's kind of funny, but also I've always thought it's weird of people that when they have dudes go out there and wrestle in street clothes. That's always been weird to me. Because I always hated that when he was, corporate and like that GM-ish type character. When he was feuding with Angle, he'd come out and all. Kane is the only guy I think they ever did that right when it was corporate Kane. Because he'd come out in some slacks but still have some elbow pads on. And it was just like, okay, I believe you're here to wrestle. Like, you're corporate, but you're here to wrestle.
Right. Yeah, that's another guy that, I think you miss having on TV, because obviously he's, doing political things right now.
Right.
But, he was really good at, doing different things they asked him to do. The Kane character, Unmasked Kane, when he had that run of, setting people on fire, and just being terrifying. I mean, he was, that Kane and Edge shit, was really good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of guys that they're missing on TV right now that were just, polarizing. Kane, Triple H, Kurt Angle when he was younger,
But I think that just goes to show the problem of WWE.
Right.
You're not creating any new guys that are on that level, and I think that is one of the number one things that just kills them, because when you look at the other side with AEW, I think that I haven't watched a lot, but what I have watched, it feels like these guys are bigger than what they are, if that makes sense. You know, like I feel like when you watch WWE, everybody's just kind of a spoke in the wheel.
Right.
But then when you're watching AEW, like the Hangman Page ceremony, like Page feels like a big deal. Kenny Omega feels like a big deal. The Eddie Kingston CM Punk stuff, I know we haven't really talked about that at all, but all that stuff felt like such a big deal. Like it felt as big as Lesnar and Reigns, kind of, to me, in a way. It was, you know, because there was emphasis on it. There's a real story on it, and I feel like if WWE could just, I don't know, if they were just smarter about, you know, I guess at the end of the day, getting back to more long-term storytelling, because even the Hangman Page thing, I mean, that's like a 2-3 year story that they played out, you know, on at Full Gear at the end of the day. So I don't know, man. At the end of the day, one thing I was gonna ask you is what in the last, I guess about the last year since we've been, you know, I've been off recording from Wrestling with Kayfabe, is what's been your favorite moment or your favorite thing to see, or, you know, kind of just your favorite happenings essentially in the last year? I know I haven't paid 100% attention to wrestling in the last year, so I don't know how much you paid attention. But
to me, I would probably say just the overall character of Paul Heyman. You know, I think his change from Lesnar's advocate to Roman Reigns' lackey, pretty much, you know, is pretty evident, and he's great. He's great at it, you know, and you know, to put Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman, you know, that, oh my God, you know, how do you miss that for so many years?
Right.
To me, just developing Roman was the saving grace for the company. You know, because, I mean, if you bring back Shield Roman Reigns, you know, and just bring up his health problems, it works for 3 months.
Right.
You know, but him coming back and just being this intense, you know, I am anything and everything guy, you know, is great.
Just you saying that, like with the current character of Roman Reigns, I completely forgot that he even overcame cancer. Mm-hmm. That's crazy thinking about that. 'Cause you're absolutely right. I mean, that's crazy to think that's, you know, that's the same guy.
Mm-hmm. And all the stories they've told that are tied into it. You know, you bring back John Cena, you know, and you know, John Cena says, you know, and some people hated his promo. I thought it was good, you know, because, you know, he said, I don't need to do anything, Roman. I just have to hang in there, you know, and get the 1, 2, 3. That's all I have to do. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. You have to prove everything to everyone.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that too.
But some people hated it because they thought, oh, John Cena's doing this too, but improvising. I mean, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
It was on point. You know, he didn't.
It was the truth.
Right.
At the end of the day, it was the truth.
John Cena didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
We all know who he is.
Yeah, he's John Cena.
You know, but that match was everything to Roman. And, you know, and
a legacy match, essentially.
Right,
yeah.
Right. So, I mean, they tried to pass that off at No Mercy when they were doing, you know, Save Roman tour, you know, bringing John Cena in, and, you know, I can do this better, but, you know, and that was just bad because, you know, John was sharp and killed him on every promo, and, you know, it just didn't work. No one believed it, you know, but that was believable. You know, Roman actually had good promos now, and, you know, he actually, you know, got John Cena back a couple of times. So, I mean, you know, he was ready for that moment then.
Yeah.
He wasn't ready for the John Cena moment when they handed it to him the first time.
Well, and it shows the growth of the character.
Right.
Like, and the person, at the end of the day. I mean, the growth of the person. Because, yeah, I mean, who will ever forget it's a promo, kid? You're going to have to learn how to do it.
Right.
And here we are. You know, what, 5, 6 years later, however long it's been. But, you know, and here we are, and, you know, kid can cut a promo now, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, the best thing to me was, during John's promo, and people got upset at this, John said, all I have to do, I might even blow you a kiss goodbye as I walk out. They're telling a full story. And it's basically what it was. It was basically the CM Punk story told over with John Cena.
Mm-hmm.
It made sense.
Yeah.
And bringing Brock back at this time makes sense because I told you a long time ago, I said, they're basically going to tell the story of, Paul Heyman's with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is about to break Brock Lesnar's streak as the longest reigning Universal Champion of all time. So they're going to bring him back towards the end of the run, and they did. Bringing back Brock Lesnar has not always been perfect timing. It's not always made sense, but this makes sense, and it's good timing.
Yeah. And the whole Roman Reigns storyline, this is the one thing I think that is the best, is the whole progression of the whole thing feels natural.
Mm-hmm.
It's felt natural from the beginning. It began with the Usos. Well, obviously it began with him getting the belt, but then, going through what he went through with the Usos, and then them, coming full circle, and now, they're all together in the bloodline, their faction, and, with Paul Heyman, and like you said, bringing John Cena around at the perfect time, and then Brock Lesnar coming back at the perfect time, and to tell this story of Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns with a new twist of Paul Heyman's in the other corner now, absolutely perfect to me, and like I said, just feels natural. The whole progression of all of that just feels super natural.
It does, it's been a while since they've had a story like that, and it's been a while since they've done something decent like that.
Absolutely. And just like we were talking about a little bit earlier, of just, WWE needs to be able to have the long-term storytelling. Mm-hmm. And all of that between the John Cena thing and the Brock Lesnar thing, and still kind of going on with Brock. And I'm sure they'll probably drag it out to WrestleMania, mm-hmm. assuming, we're here in November, that somehow it'll probably get stretched to at least, obviously, the Rumble. But, I guess I forgot where I was going with that, but just to have all that natural progression and, to tie into a whole lot before. I mean, there's so much history with him and Brock. WrestleMania 31, WrestleMania 34, and now here we are, possibly setting up for 37. Kind of almost gives you that kind of Stone Cold versus Rock vibe, mm-hmm. that we, they, what was it, every other WrestleMania for, 5-6 years or something, 15, 17, and 19, they had matches.
Yeah.
So,
well, surprisingly, WWE has done a decent job with long-term booking recently. The Edge and Seth Rollins.
Man, yeah, that's been really good.
It's been really good. And Kevin Owens, Kevin Owens' character as a whole, and his struggle between that and this, and they're trying. My biggest issue with WWE right now is Sonya Deville is so much more than this GM figure, and they're doing the exact same story they did with Vince and Kofi that they're doing with Sonya Deville and Naomi.
Vince and who?
Vince and Kofi.
Oh, okay.
Remember when Vince, was before Kofi won the title, and Vince, kept saying, "Oh, you'll get your championship match if you win this gauntlet. If you
right,
do this
yeah.
and do that." They're basically doing the same thing, and I've never liked Naomi as a character. I just don't, and
it's kind of
annoying, and her personality shines through the character pretty poorly.
It's that overly baby face that's like so baby face you just, you're not. I mean, if you're a 6-year-old girl,
right,
you're all for it. But the as they call it, the key demo. I don't think is big on overly babyface. I mean, that's why John Cena got so much hate for all them years. I mean, it's the same thing with Naomi, because I feel you. It seems like I like Naomi, but, you know, her gimmick and, you know, all that, I don't know. I've never been the biggest fan, though. I don't know. I haven't seen her in a long time, so I mean, I don't know if she still does the lights and, you know, all that stuff. That was always kind of annoying. I also didn't like it when I thought the mask, the Mustafa Ali and his little light up mask, I thought that was dumb too. But I don't know. I guess I'm just not a fan of light up shit.
Yeah. Well, to kind of wrap up this long ass show.
What a return!
I know.
A lot longer than Becky's.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's the best way to finish it up. Then, kind of review and summarize what happened between Becky and Charlotte in the ring. You can tell. Becky walked out a second ago. You can tell that Charlotte's thinking about something when she's walking out there. You know, and by the way, she's done a lot to her face. People have brought that up. She's done some surgery of some sort. Because her face looks different.
Wasn't that why she was out for so long? Something went wrong with some plastic surgery?
May have been.
I think they kind of kept that under wraps a little bit.
Yeah.
But there was a while that she was out.
Yeah, because, I mean, she looks different.
Yeah, I guess I haven't really paid attention too much to it. You can definitely tell there's some tension. Okay. Becky's not even looking, like, acknowledging her, and she's on the apron.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, and they are both very good at their characters, too. So, I mean, you know.
That's a fact.
And so, you know, at this point, this could be character work. This could be, you know, the fact that, you know, she pissed her off backstage. Which the rumor was they were not happy with each other all night.
Yeah, well, and Becky did an outside interview that was, you know, not WWE. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously WWE related. They're asking her about it and stuff, but, you know, not necessarily air quotes in character. Mm-hmm. And kayfabe, I guess I should say. Because she was saying, you know, it's hard to work with somebody that you can't trust. And, you know, basically just saying that she's kind of lost respect for Charlotte. Because from everything I've seen or heard and read, Charlotte went into business for herself in this segment. Right. We're watching currently on the television, we've got the belt exchange segment between Becky and Charlotte. And I also want to say, is this the dumbest thing you've ever seen on WWE television? Because me personally, I think this is one of the top worst things. Like, what even went through someone's mind to do a belt exchange between two champions of just... Well, I'm going to hand my... I get it in a sense, but at the same time, like... Especially because you set the precedence with the Universal title going to SmackDown and you just turned it blue.
Right.
Why was this ever a thing? Like...
Well, they basically... I think it was kind of a... Whoops. You know, now we gotta fix this now.
Booked ourselves into a corner.
They booked themselves into a corner. You know, and you gave it to Charlotte Flair and you gave it to Becky Lynch. And, you know, you can't just, you know... Here's the... Oh, Becky tries to grab it, and then she just drops it. And then you can tell very quickly that that's not what was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And now it's a little awkward. And then Becky just threw it at her, and Charlotte just decides to let it drop. Sonya doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, I feel bad for her in the middle of all this. She's looking around like, what the fuck are you ladies doing? And then, but I also think in this regard for Charlotte, I think that in my head, like if I was a WWE official, that would piss me off because at the end of the day, you just disrespected both fucking belts.
Right.
One of them you dropped on the floor, and the other one, well, I mean, you dropped both of them on the ground, but I mean, and now she's kind of trying to save face by holding up the SmackDown belt, but at the same time, I mean, you just kind of let it fall to the ground like it wasn't shit, so I don't know. To me, it just looked bad all the way around with Charlotte. She just kind of, I feel like she just kind of showed that I don't really give a fuck about either one of these belts.
Well, you know, and And I'm trying to figure out if Sasha was even supposed to come out.
Yeah, maybe they're like, just go out there and fix it.
It doesn't really look like it. Because I don't think either of them are trying to be in character right now. So it looks like Charlotte's confused.
Well, and from what I heard is that Charlotte wanted to do the thing where she dropped the belt. But they said no, and Becky didn't like the idea either. And everyone agreed that that wasn't going to happen. But she still went out there and did it anyways.
This went off the rails pretty quick, and Becky said, "Fuck this."
Yeah, you can tell Becky is just fucking pissed. I mean, it's fairly obvious, and okay, so I have not went back and watched the Nia Jax and Charlotte match, so I mean, I don't know exactly how bad that looked or anything. I've only heard Jim Cornette and Brian Last's interpretation of it is the only thing that I've heard. But, I mean, it just seems like Charlotte's just in it for herself and maybe she's just trying to piss off the right people to get a release.
I don't know, but I mean, it's clear that, if you're going to get Charlotte Sasha, which I mean, it's a good match, but
yeah, it's not like we haven't seen it a bunch.
No, yeah, we've seen it more than 30 times, and you can't have the same outcome every time. You know?
Well, I think that's the best part about trying to throw Liv Morgan up into the upper echelon of the females, because at the end of the day in the women's division, I mean, we need some new life, we need some new blood. You know what I'm saying? Like we need a little bit more, than Sasha, Charlotte, Becky all the time. What happened with Sonya Deville? Is she not wrestling anymore? Did she get hurt?
Well, she had that weird, personal thing happen to where, that guy tried to break into her house.
Okay, I do kind of remember that.
And I don't know if she had a surgery after that or something like that. But yeah, she's not wrestling. I don't know if it's because of health or just
what they're doing with her creatively. Yeah.
I mean, it may bring her back into a Naomi match.
One thing I did not like that I noticed on Monday Night Raw, and I don't remember who it was, it may have been KO. No, it was Finn Balor. Finn Balor called Adam Pearce, right? Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville. He referred to them as the Authority. I thought that was interesting. Right. Threw me off. That was just like interesting. Because I hadn't heard that from anyone.
Cue Triple H and Stephanie McMahon.
Right. That's what that made me think.
Which, I know this show is long, but whatever. We'll wrap up with the Authority. Why not? I liked the Authority.
I did too. I think that it's like a love-hate relationship type of thing, because on one hand it kind of feels necessary, but it's something good to just hate.
And Triple H is so good at being a fucking dick.
Absolutely.
That was the whole point of it. For him to be a dick, for him to be, cerebral, that was the whole point of it. And Stephanie McMahon is, good at her, her stick and all that. And, and it did get a little too aggressive at the end, but they also noticed that and pulled the plug on it. Yeah. So
I think that is what really made me a Seth Rollins fan through all that. I don't think Seth has really ever reached what he was at that point as that heel, because all of his heel work since then, like recently, I can't stand really the Monday Night Messiah and all that, and they've toned it back a little bit where it's kind of bearable. But man, when he was with the Authority and it was just like, you felt like he was real beatable, but nobody could really get their hands on him clean, and then to hear his fucking Squidward laugh. And it's just like, God, I hate this guy. But then you grow to like, man, I hate him so much. He's doing, he's doing his job. Right. He's really fucking good at being just a kind of a cowardly heel. And I think with the Authority backing him, is what made him feel so dastardly as a heel. Just like, man, I wish somebody would just fuck him up. But
Right. And we'll end on this point, and I'll circle back to Randy Orton, conniving his way and breaking the Authority up. And that was one of my favorite Orton times as a character.
Absolutely, because and we talked about Kane a little bit here too, because in that time period, Kane was really good, and just, I mean, at the end of the day, like, I don't think that people appreciate that little time period enough, because really the storytelling was really intricate. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you really go back and look at all of the moving parts and what was going on, and then you get the Sting return at the Survivor Series match, and then, Triple H is favoring Seth Rollins over Randy Orton, so we get that WrestleMania match. Mm-hmm. Then Rollins ends up winning the title at 31, mm-hmm. At WrestleMania 31, and that's damn near a full year of storytelling, isn't it? Because, I mean, that really started with right after WrestleMania 30.
Right.
With the Shield.
Yeah.
And, I mean, in the last 10, 15 years, I mean, I don't think that there's a bigger moment that stands out for me than that moment. I mean, throw the pipe bomb in there with CM Punk, mm-hmm. but the moment where Rollins hits... was it Dean Ambrose or Roman that he hit first? I think it's Roman Reigns he hit first with the chair. And Dean is just staring like, what the fuck is happening? Mm-hmm. And, and then Triple H is on the mic and he says, when plan A doesn't work, you go to plan B. And then Rollins hits Ambrose too, and it's just like, what just happened? Mm-hmm. Like, that was such a shocking moment. I mean, mm-hmm. I was 20-something by that point, but, and still just, my mind was blown. I was like, what is happening? Right. I did not expect that the night after, they take out Evolution for the second time. Mm-hmm. So I think that time period is very underrated, because that was a lot of good, intricate, long-term storytelling. But
yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think that's a good note to end the show.
Yeah. We did a lot of intricate storytelling too. So,
we did. Bobbing and weaving. Yeah. So check us out. We are on Instagram, Twitter, all your good stuff, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review. Let us know what you want us to talk about.
Well, we've got one requested review coming up.
We do. The Battle Royal at Royal Albert Hall. Nothing I've ever seen before. I don't know about you, DEJ, but
that's going to be interesting.
We will jump into that. But we will see you next time on Wrestling with Kayfabe. We appreciate all the support.